Now with better ratings than WWE programming, it's Whacked Out Wrestling. Hello, everyone. This is Whacked Out Wrestling as we're trying to get used to the new live events thing on YouTube.com for where we run our shows. And I am, of course, Thomas S.K. Green, and with me is our producer, John Roche.
Hey.
And this week has been one of those where it's the worst part is that every time something good happens or something big happens is the weeks that don't goes problems, but this time it's easier to just go solo on these ones. So ultimately you have to do these ones because normally you have to have problems, but there's other issues. Like for instance, maybe I can't do a southern accent. I can't be off TV because of that. That'd be silly talk, am I right? Which relates to the same stories that came out as Luke Harper was rejected for his release request on the grounds that he's not getting good reactions from Vince McMahon for not being able to do a Southern accent, and he didn't get a feud with Sami Zayn to begin with, and his match with EC3 and Drake Maverick didn't go well enough, so they put the EC3 and Mavericks team on ice while waiting for things. If all these things happen, you'd think that'd be a good reason to release Luke Harper. You'd be wrong. No, they keep him on contract even though he's doing nothing. Because there's that 1 in a million chance maybe AEW takes him and takes someone who is a generic heavy guy. Yeah. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's really it's not the only reason I could imagine it. The other reason would be petty spite, which, I wouldn't put it past Vince McMahon, but...
Well, that would be the form of petty spite why we have the other related problems where the Revival offered $500,000 this week to stay in WWE, but rejected the offer and then Lio Rush offered $300,000 to be the manager for Bobby Lashley and demanded double, which wouldn't be a problem except Lio Rush has been kicked out of the dressing room, and when everybody complained about it, he did an unlicensed interview, which is the type of stuff that gets you turbo fired. WWE has not fired him.
Well, of course. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, you can continue.
Well, of course, because the man looks like money, smells like money, is money.
Yes. And that's even the question because he's no longer those things because he's not with Lashley.
Lashley.
But that's all the weird stuff that's going through in this week because what do you do in these cases? I mean, there's a chance that WWE loses them to AEW, but if they're not the top people there, do you care? Ultimately, that's a big question on it. Like, that was one of the good things when they released Ty Dillinger, where Dillinger was fun, but ultimately he's more valuable to AEW than he'd ever be to WWE. And that's also the question where there's almost too many people that if you give AEW too many of them, you're just going to clog the indie scene. You're going to clog the AEW scene. You're going to clog Impact and Ring of Honor up, and it's not going to help anybody. So why not just fire some people who aren't doing well there? It wouldn't help. It wouldn't hurt them, and it would probably help the whole thing go through. I mean, for crying out loud, Impact was so desperate they put Fuck Canoe on their shows in the main world title feuds. It's not like they're going to need more problems there.
Yes, you're not hearing that incorrectly, folks. They actually hired Michael Elgin.
And honestly, this is a good thing in many cases. I mean, it's been a while since Impact did something so utterly insane that they really got the image of TNA. That is the best TNA being TNA move you could make. And that's what they've had to do. Impact has fallen to the point they have to take flyers on completely broken people who are at box office poison but might have a chance. Sometimes it worked, like with Rich Swann after his problems. Sometimes it failed miserably, like with Alberto El Patron and Austin Aries. But TNA's at the level where they kind of had to do it. So that's really the weirdest thing. Yes, they brought Elgin in, but honestly, it was inevitable that Impact is doing it. And they're probably going to bring Enzo and Cass in too. So be prepared for that one, folks.
Oh, good Lord.
Because ultimately, that's the big thing. TNA has fallen to the point where they have to take a flyer on people who are broken. And as we've seen with Rich Swann, who has been on his best behavior in Impact, and if there was a problem, Su Yung is right there and has pretty much said it. There is that chance that maybe, just maybe, they put it all together and they actually get a benefit at their lowest stocks. So it's a bad move to put Elgin in, but I can't blame TNA for trying. Remember, this is someone who got 5 stars from Meltzer a few years ago, and was a relatively popular gaijin in New Japan. And they're at the lowest stock possible, so that's the type of person that Impact probably should be going for. No one else is touching this guy, but there's so much upside that if you get the best possible ending for it, they get a star. Of course, it's countered with the more than likely chance they're going to flame out, but still. Thoughts?
I'm really not sure how this is gonna go. Like, really, really not sure. Like, like you said, it's the sort of thing where he's not terrible in the ring. He probably has the potential to turn out fine, to have a decent match or two, but he's Michael Elgin. Like, and we all know, we know what he did.
Yes. And ultimately, that's really the question mark, because with most of these people, there was whispers of what Alberto El Patron did, but no conclusive proof of it. And with Austin Aries, all he's ever done was he's a douchebag. It's not like not like it's illegal to be a douchebag on stuff like that.
Yeah.
And in defense, most of what Elgin did is he didn't do any of that stuff, but he covered up for someone who did. So again, he was an incredible, incredible turbo douchebag, but not illegal to be a douchebag. So there is the chance there. But there you have that, and you have the case that Rich Swann beat the living crap out of his wife, who was in TNA at this time, and he's managed to seem to calm down and be a good soldier on the TNA roster. So there's the chance for a success story there. Not a big one, but there's enough of a chance that you got to take the risk. And it's basically the same way that Ring of Honor had to bring Enzo and Cass in. Yes, they're turbo douchebags, but their stock couldn't be any lower. And if they click, you have a big star right there. So, got to take the risk. It flamed out miserably, but they had to do it.
And it is the sort of thing where, like, Ring of Honor is basically at a point where, well, we all know what point they're at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, they're basically at the level where they're a bad restaurant in a good location. They have the name value of Ring of Honor, but ultimately they've been overtaken by Evolve for the top indie position. And they've probably been overtaken by MLW. And you can make a strong case even Impact's overtaken Ring of Honor. They are if New Japan wasn't working with them, they would be doomed. And that goes to the other stuff with, speaking of doomed shows, Raw and SmackDown this week. And we start the show off with Alexa Bliss announcing Raw's men's Money in the Bank participants, and we get Braun Strowman, Ricochet, Drew McIntyre, and Baron Corbin. So we get two people who've lost Money in the Bank at this time, and one person will be a good goofy person because seeing Ricochet and Money in the Bank will be interesting.
Oh, of course.
And one person who should be the favorite, McIntyre. It's all perfectly acceptable, but it's completely, utterly meh. And naturally, because that's what happens, we get Braun Strowman and Ricochet versus Baron Corbin and Drew McIntyre. Which is actually interesting because I think this is the first time Strowman's been in a tag team match with someone he did not have a connection with, which has always been one of Strowman's benefits because he's always found some good connection with his tag team partners, and it's gone through even past it. So that should work, and helps that Ricochet and Strowman got the win on this one which helps on it because Corbin and McIntyre didn't do much as a tag team, even though they've been allied for months. So pretty much straightforward there as well on it. And that's always been the weakness of these ones, where a lot of it's been nice long matches, but ultimately meh. And then it goes to the next part of it where you have the Usos coming out to try and get the crowds hyped up. And the superstar shakeup continues as we have our trade for the B team from last week as Anderson and Gallows go back to Raw, which is, yeah, they're jobbers now. It's just another case where Anderson and Gallows are the team to lose as they go on their way off. And there's a team that's not in the mix and won't be in the mix. So naturally, they get 10 minutes. Really? Really? Are you kidding me? This is the problem, folks. Long matches are not equal to good matches. There's no way around this. And if you need long matches on this one, you could use stuff for a build to the team that wants long matches, Dash Wilder and Scott Dawson. But instead, you have them shaving each other's backs because this is what WWE does. You can't have just a good tag team being a good tag team. You need to have things to embarrass them. Shaving backs, peeing your pants, and no, Drake Maverick, it's not cool. I don't care what Billy Madison told you. It's not cool. But this is why they need to use that one to build to the Usos revival match is insane. I mean, you've got the Usos and Revival might be the two best tag teams in the company. They've never fought. That's all you need. That's really a match that writes itself. Same with Rollins Styles. You don't need anything. Just these two teams are finally going to fight is all you need. And now you have, and that's just why you go with this one. Of course, I can see why they're not giving $500,000 on this one. And this is bad because normally it seemed like if you're offered a chance to be an instant millionaire for a contract and you choose, I'd rather prance around with a pretty belt on TV, you are a fucking mark. You are a mark, markety mark. Henry and Undertaker can step aside because you are the biggest mark on the planet. If you really are so desperate to hold a pretty belt, then that you throw away being a millionaire to do it, you deserve to be laughed at. If you were at regular work and someone was offered a huge raise and he said, no, I don't want the raise, but in exchange, you have to make me employee of the month this week, so I have my picture on the wall. That would be the most pathetic thing in your workplace. Everybody there would laugh at this person. So why do we accept it when wrestlers say, "No, I don't want the money. I'd rather be a champion instead for less money"? That is the same basic thing. A title is the pinnacle of your career, and it's also being scripted to have an award on a fake show. It's something that gives you an honor of being the standard bearer, and it's also being employee of the month. It's a reward that you've grown up wishing for in your life, and it's also like if Sylvester Stallone kept gloating that he was the world heavyweight champion because he won it in Rocky. It's all those things and none of those things. And we're fine with people choosing to leave over this. That's just doesn't make sense. You?
Yeah, that is kind of unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Continues the story as we have Miz TV happening and we have Bobby Lashley continuing his loss of Leo Rush, because even if Lashley had some charisma with Rush, now you don't want to go into that level at all. And this was stat versus stat between Bobby Lashley, the MMA champion, the NCAA champion, and The Miz.
The new Miz.
Yes.
Because apparently that's the new thing. Like, they're not just who they were, they're new. Like, the new Daniel Bryan or...
I don't know. I don't think that the Miz is. I think the Miz has chosen the fans, even if they're fickle. So naturally, we go to another thing with the Miz versus Bobby Lashley, and the Miz actually comes close to beating him until Shane McMahon puts up a picture of his father. And that's one of the weaknesses for the Miz. We're seeing that Miz is going to be good at these things, but at the same time, he just doesn't have the good storylines he deserves to be a good babyface. If you wonder why they're having 2 million viewers or less on Raw, this feud has been on for 6 months since Shane won the tournament in Saudi Arabia. 6 months now of Ms. Shane McMahon. Really? Really? Really?
Really? Really?
Yes. And that is just, there's a good, it's ultimately the problem, and this is why they switched the show of Miz to boot, and it's still going on. There is nothing going there.
Here's what I'm predicting in the next year. At some point, The Miz is going to go to AEW.
Mm-hmm.
And the feud will still be going on.
No, you got to have Shane McMahon go to AEW. I mean, he does do a lot of insane
kind of
stuff.
implied, you know?
Yeah. Well, Shane McMahon does a lot of insane jumps and does use super kicks a few times, so he's perfect for the AEW style. So then you go from that one to another battle between the Lucha House Party and the Viking Experience, as normal one, blah. But at least Viking Experience look good with the Viking Experience, and then the Lucha Experience don't do much. So Viking experience win, Lucha experience lose, and then we totally had a lesbian experience in college. You guys had a video right afterwards. Just is what it is. And then we go to the women's Money in the Bank participants that announced first as Natalya shows up and gets into the match. Dana Brooke surprisingly gets in, which is honestly kind of nice because they've been trying to sell a storyline where she's improving. It seems like the right time that she's going to make the leap, so giving her a chance works. And then we have Naomi as the third person, and then they all fight each other and go through. They wait for the fourth woman, and of course it's Alexa Bliss, which naturally goes to a match between Naomi and Bliss later.
Of course.
But then we continue for what everybody's really watching for, Firefly Funhouse. Bray Wyatt's painting happy little burning houses with Rambling Rabbit, the Buttons, and Paige here the Witch going through, and just continuing with what's slowly become the best thing about the show. It's creepy, it's awesome. I want to know what's going next, but that's still bad that the best thing about the show is a parody of a kids' TV show. 2 million viewers, folks. And then we have the actual match, which were they just in the ring all this time watching this? You think they'd probably have an opinion about what they just saw there. So we have Bliss tying her shoes multiple times, apparently stealing Tim Donst's gimmick from Nova Pro Wrestling. Shout out to Mikhail there. But was completely random, and Naomi gets the win over Alexa Bliss, but at least it is what it is. Then Rey Mysterio preps for his match to prove himself to Eddie Guerrero's son, as always, so.
Naturally.
And we have another promo of Becky Lynch continuing the same. She fought the odds. She did everything. Lacey Evans is doing these things, and Lacey's gimmick continues to be buried for it. It is what it is, and this is basically getting to be the problem where Becky Lynch versus Pretty Blondes has to stop eventually. And you have to have more feuds than that because ultimately it's not even helping Becky. If you keep going with a storyline of the other shoe's going to drop and they're going to build around a blonde, then the other shoe is going to drop on her, and it just doesn't work like that. Then we have some more cases of the Revival getting their way after this of Hawkins and Ryder, and they make it a gimmick of them shaving their back. They get shave your back chance, which doesn't work because we saw they shaved their back. It's happened. It's not like it was Albert who needs it beforehand. So it goes through completely normal and a fluke win for the champions. But they just keep the titles on the champions, even though it's clear Revival Usos is the big feud, but now they just keep it going. Meh. And then Miz responds to Shane as we get a cage match at Money in the Bank, which will go to the did they buy a Hell in a Cell match at Saudi Arabia, or are they going to put Miz's father on a pole?
No, they're going to put him in a shark cage, obviously.
Yeah, they have to sell the toys somehow. And then we go to the next point of this one as Sami Zayn continues his screw you fans storyline, and it just continues to have more of the problem as the ratings drop. For one problem we're seeing is that WWE's deep-seated loathing of the fans is seeping into the fact that they can't succeed now. Look at every other niche product in the world, and the whole refrain is simple. I don't care if people laugh at you. Here, you belong. It doesn't matter that you're ugly. Doesn't matter that you're bullied. Doesn't matter that you're a loser outside of these things. This is your people. This is where you belong in life. And you're part of something so much bigger than that, that it's so much cooler than anybody who's picking on you could ever dream of. You're here, and that means you are cool because you're here. That's how niche markets go for every single thing in the world. And WWE continues to go with, you actually care about this stuff? What a loser. If you were really cool, you wouldn't watch this stuff. This is loser stuff for losers. You'd be out on Monday nights having fun, partying, and doing real man things. And that just doesn't work on these things. We've seen it for too long on these ones. The Zack Ryder, oh, he's a loser. He cared about wrestling. He watches it. How they destroyed Bayley in this feud with Alexa Bliss, boiling down to, she actually watched wrestling. What a loser. I didn't watch wrestling, and that makes me cool. And it doesn't work there. What do you do if you're doing this? The whole story of wrestling is the same as everything else. You've got to make people believe that they're cool because they're part of this. That's what made the rock and wrestling era work. It's what made the Attitude Era work. And if you look outside of it, New Japan does it. The independent wrestling scene does it. Even NXT does it, so WWE knows this. They all give you that thing that this is your house, this is where you belong, and this is what makes you cool. And for some reason, WWE is built around, you're a loser for caring. They wonder why people are tuning out in droves. You're telling them to. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I I don't really know what else I can add to that. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And then from there, we get Samoa Joe versus Rey Mysterio, with Joe saying that he wasn't a good father and should give his son a mask, which doesn't work because, as we've seen, the linear custody of Dominic from other things apparently is in the hands of Roman Reigns at this point. So Joe should be going after Roman for the custody of Dominic, not Rey. Which also comes from the weird things of, you can actually determine custody of Dominic linearly like any other title belt. And you can do it for a lot of other things too, so like at this moment I have seen that Roman Reigns not only has linear custody of Dominic, he also has linear permission from the McMahon family to marry Stephanie.
So he beat Triple H, or
No, it started back from the Lover or Leaver match at SummerSlam '99, where Test beats Shane McMahon. So if you go through there, Test would keep going and go through and go through and go through, and whoever beat Test gets the permission, and so on.
Okay.
Actually, from my checks, Triple H only held linear permission to be married to Stephanie about 4 times in his life. Chris Jericho held it more times. China held it once, so she was technically allowed to marry a woman once. And Shane McMahon held it multiple times.
Oh, geez. So she went from the game to Game of Thrones.
Exactly. Well, there was always the story that Vince wanted Shane to be Stephanie's father of her child in storyline, so.
Oh, God.
Mm-hmm. But
Does
continuing.
that make Hornswoggle Tyrion?
Well, was related to Finley on this one, so I assume he drinks and he knows things. So
Uh,
I don't think they'd have as much controversy though if they had Arya killing Brock Lesnar though. So there is the plus on.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. But luckily, we didn't go through all this Avengers Endgame spoilers, so we won't tell you that Snape kills Dumbledore in it.
No, you bitch! You bitch!
Yes. But at least in this match, Joe's got rolled up by Ray for the pin, and it was meh. And then Dominic puts Ray on his shoulders because apparently all the baby faces are built on they had family members. And then the main event was just this was at least AJ versus Seth Rollins was a problem because it just didn't feel like a main event for some reason. Like sometimes there's stuff that feel like good endings for the show. Sometimes there's bad endings for the show. This didn't even feel like an ending. Like just watching it, I didn't know that Raw ended this week until I saw Modern Family start on it, and even then, it took a few minutes for me to catch. Oh yeah, that's Modern Family. My mistake. It just didn't feel like an ending in any way, shape, or form. I don't know if the show went quicker this week, if it went through, but it just didn't feel like this show ended naturally. And that's just weird. Any thoughts on those?
Yeah, it seems like they're. I guess obviously, I guess they felt like one of the people had to be heels, so they had AJ turn. It seems like so.
Yeah, but even with that, it's almost weird that if you're going to do that, bring Gallows and Anderson in and have them go with it and just run with the same beat up Seth Rollins stuff. Worked with John Cena, so. But then we go to SmackDown this week, and we get the same thing of the random turn for no apparent reason as Kevin Owens turns and completely destroys the skill of the New Day. I mean, he called himself Big O for them. That 1 week was a bond. And of course, Kofi Kingston comes in. He talks about how great things were, gets the title one, and they should have seen Kevin Owens coming for this one, but apparently it didn't work for it. Would that make him the new Sting? And if so, did Hardbody Harrison finally get his Stang gimmick pitched for it? So, and then Owens demands the title shot, and they go through, and that's at least the match. And now it's Owens versus Kofi about him not being championship material, even though he won the title. And now we have and then we go to the next match as Bayley versus Becky Lynch, and they announce here that Bayley's in Money in the Bank to help things out there. And this was actually a pretty straightforward gimmick, but it does feel a little off on it where they're building some momentum for Bayley. They're showing her have an attitude, but just even the small things on it, going against Becky Lynch, who's the big name, and even the stuff with if you noticed her jacket, which usually is emulating Randy Savage on it, kind of convenient. She was in black and white, like his NWO jersey for this one. Almost as if they're preparing people for a Bayley heel turn. And it would seem to be straight through. And then they have Charlotte talk about how Becky Lynch has to do the impossible of winning twice in one night. We remind you, AJ Styles did it last week. Aleister Black cuts a video, and they continue trying to make him the dark gothic person. which I think makes him part of the My Immortal cast now, as opposed to, I'm totally happy to be on WWE programming. Also, I am from Holland. Isn't that weird? And then after this one, the Hardys show up. The tag titles are vacated because Lars Sullivan attacked him, which continues the attack by Lars Sullivan, and at least did the right thing for the first time. They never say that it was no one's fault anymore on it, and actually say, yes, he was injured by this big monster we're trying to make a star. And that's what you're supposed to do. You have an injury, blame it on someone so you have a storyline in the future. And if you do, even the stuff like when in 2009 or stuff, so where you had, oh yeah, Randy Orton gave Batista a concussion, and the concussion also broke his elbow for some reason. Even that.
I shouldn't laugh. I mean, it's clear that Jeff Hardy has lost a lot of things. His smile is one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but at least it does work on it, and at least they give something to make Lars Sullivan look like a monster as opposed to just a troll. And then they announce the four men's Money in the Bank participants and give you Ali, Finn Balor, Andrade, and Randy Orton. So they just put it up as a graphic and it's completely random. Which actually works on it because the SmackDown side looks a little bit stronger than the Raw side.
Yeah.
Ali and Andrade are both people who deserve to be in the world title picture. Finn Balor's ready for his close-up and has been. Even Randy Orton's good as the veteran in the mix. So.
Oh yeah, and no one else on the roster is snack like him.
Yeah. Yep, he's putting on RKO's like he was a kid going after a crocodile in a Florida theme park. And honestly, that's one of the problems where one time if you do an RKO on your teacher, it's a stupidity thing. 2 times, seriously, just get the wig and do hit or miss. I guess they never miss, huh? Do something that's a more modern meme there. The RKO out of nowhere meme is 2 years ago. I mean, come on. And then we have Kairi Sane and Asuka beating up random jobbers as the Iconics are there. And it's just a problem because we don't know if these Kairi Sane and Asuka are breaking someone's undefeated streak, which is always a weakness on it. But
what we do know is that those random jobbers were not ready for Asuka.
Well, being fair, Kairi Sane was one who got the pin, so it doesn't really. So they may have been ready for Asuka, but they were definitely not ready for Kairi Sane, which helps on it because at least Paige is proving she got the right pick with Kairi Sane. She's she's going with a big elbow. She's getting these ones, and she's proving that unlike her brother Sammy, she actually likes the fans. Then we have Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville arguing over who one of the two being in the Money in the Bank match, and neither one goes through yet. We have Roman Reigns talk about him getting onto Raw and Shane McMahon getting overexposed by being in 2 big stories at the same time. So naturally, Shane McMahon is unhappy with his match. He keeps going. He wants a big attack, so he goes with someone who'd go for the reins. Someone big. Someone who'd be a huge attack for him. The B team. It was the
B team. Go, go, go.
That's one of the problems on this one where it's not just the B team. And you have a match with Elias. The match was 10 minutes, 47 seconds. 10 minutes for Roman Reigns to beat the B team. Even if it's a 2-on-1 match. It's bad enough if you're doing it on Raw or stuff like this, but the real problem is you're using these long matches for people who should not have long matches. Roman Reigns should be able to punch these people out quickly. It's B Team. He should be able to Superman punch and spear these fools within a few minutes. Tops. Same problem they had with Ronda Rousey. The MMA star who was a big name for beating people quickly in 10 seconds was taking 10 minutes to dispatch jobbers. What the hell are you doing? It's not. If you're gonna go all the way with with Roman Reigns, I mean, you gotta do the right thing, and that is have him beat people very quickly and keep beating them and keep beating them and keep them and on to Michigan and Wisconsin and so on and so on. Because that's what you do when you're making a star. It's not rocket science. Star goes in, Star beats opponent to a bloody paste, does it next week and the week after, and keeps doing it until they're popular. And then we a tag team match with Andrade and Orton versus Finn Balor and Ali, and it is same thing, just Ali gets the victory, and so it just happens. Orton hits the RKO, Ali saves, and we get the women in the Money in the Bank match as Ember Moon, Carmella, Mandy Rose, and Bayley are the four for the women's side, and we just get Kevin Owens showing things as no Xavier Woods, and they end us and interviews action figures. I can't understand why this show didn't get good ratings. And that's ultimately the problem on this one, where eventually there's a lot of reasons for bad ratings. People are cutting the cords. They do well DVR on it, but ultimately you gotta eventually say the show sucks. And that's not a bad thing. They tried to say the show sucked back in December, but they just don't seem to get it anymore. It's like, yeah, they have right now, Raw is similar to The Walking Dead. They have such potential to be good, and everyone knows they have potential, but they don't want to do this change. Instead, they just keep it slowly, tantalizingly close to being so good and saying, well, this could be good if you do it. You don't want to miss it when it turns the corner, but it's never that good. And people are turning on to the fact it's never going to be that good. And ultimately, that's really the problem. And now they're seeing this just as as people are seeing the big contracts coming due, and people are not having these. They've got to find a way to get fans back, but they've wasted every possible way to do it. It should have been there with Ronda Rousey, as you should. If you want to get your show better, you do what you did in 1997. Get your shit together booking wise. Make sure everything goes well there. Make sure you're firing on all 8 cylinders creatively. Then throw a celebrity in and expect that, okay, we're coming for this celebrity. We're staying for this guy or this girl. And they're just not doing it. They wasted their best shot, and they just keep wasting them. Ultimately, it's may have had those ones that we didn't have to have other people on it, because there's just so much to talk about on this one with how do you waste all this stuff? And it's not even like you're doing things normally. You're just keeping people so that other people can't have them, but you're not using them to see if there's something to make them better. either shit or get off of Pop. Let him go or use them. And even then, it doesn't mean give him the title. Just try and explore the room a bit with him. Ultimately, that's just the week in wrestling. It's like they don't.
Much of a week.
Yeah. Until then, till next time, I'm Thomas S.K. Green. With me is John Roche, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Hopefully it'll be better than this one.
Probably couldn't be.